Thank you, Damien. We'll stay on the transportation sector, but we'll go down to the ground now, talking about how AI is rethinking transportation, a very concerning subject for all of you. I mean, you probably arrived here from, I don't know, using a metro or a car or a scooter, electric scooter, or a bike, whatever. So you all need transportation system in big countries like Paris. And when we talk about AI, most of the time we think about the autonomous car. We're going to try a discussion of roughly 25 minutes without talking too much about autonomous cars, because you hear a lot about that, but talking about other things that will change in the transportation. I think trying to have a big picture on the sector. And to discuss this, we have Jean-Marc David from Renault, Yohan Amsterdamer from RATP, and Javier Jil Quijano from CEA in Cadarache. We'll start with Jean-Marc David. So you are from the car industry. You're the guy making the cars today, trying to make them autonomous. But when we prepared this panel, you told us that Renault is thinking about AI on cars much far than simply making them autonomous for the individual, but more as a transportation system. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. Yes, you're right. Of course, when we are talking about AI as a disruption for the automotive industry, everybody has in mind autonomous vehicles. And this is a very big challenge, of course, being able to deliver vehicles that will be autonomous, robust, safe. This is something which is very challenging for AI, and I could explain how AI will be involved in different functions of the vehicle itself, to perceive the environment, to make decisions, to make a forecast about possible evolution of the situation, how to interact with the other users, etc., etc. But this is something we've been talking a lot already. So maybe we could shift to another topic, which is another disruption, and maybe something that will be even more disruptive for the automotive industry. When we are talking about delivering autonomous car, it's still business as usual. We are still selling cars, autonomous cars, but we are selling cars to our customers. What we have in mind is to use these autonomous vehicles in fleets, what we call Robo Taxis, and to shift from ownership to usage. Mobility as a service, the way we can propose to people a new way to be mobile from one point A to point B using Robo Taxis. And this is for us something brand new, because we do not want in that case just to sell the cars. We want to sell the service to the user. This is something we already announced, our president already announced that Renault and the Alliance are willing to be mobility operators. We are not just willing to be the ones that will build the cars for some others. And let me just describe several consequences of this. First, of course, it's a drastic change in the business model for us. That's clear. But from a technology point of view, when we are designing autonomous cars, it's not just a technical challenge. We also have to face another challenge, which is the cost versus value for the customer. We cannot put too much technology, sensors into the car if we are not able to sell the service or the function to the customer. When we are talking about mobility services, it's very different.
So the thing is, if you can put much more sensors on a Robo Taxi that you would put on anyone's regular car, because it's more expensive, because the business model is not the same than ownership.
The business model is very different. Your private car is used approximately 5% of the time. When we are talking about Robo Taxis, it can be used every day, 24 hours a day. So the business model is different. We can put much more technology, much more sensors. We can use redundant sensors, etc. So from a technology point of view, it will be very different. And from the infrastructure point of view, it's also very different. When you have your own car, and if you have the ability to drive in autonomous mode, let's say on highway, we need to be sure that you will be able to do that on any highway. If we are thinking about a service of robotaxis in a particular city, then we can discuss with the city about the infrastructure, and we can discuss how to modify slightly the infrastructure in order to ease the technology problem of the self-driving car. So it's a major change for us. It's a change in the business model, it's a change in the technology we can put in the car, it's a change in the way we can deal with what is the embedded intelligence in the car and what we can put as intelligence into the infrastructure.
Talking about the roadmap, you personally think it's very difficult to predict the future, and there have been so many timelines that have been given about this kind of new autonomous systems. But do you think we'll have sooner Robo Taxis, autonomous fleets, than cars? I mean, on a regular day basis, not proofs of concepts or prototypes, but real things that we can use?
It's linked to the fact that we can negotiate on the infrastructure. And then we can imagine that in some particular places, if we can drastically simplify the problem, it will be much easier for us to deliver. For us, I mean the automotive industry, not just Renault. It will be much easier to deliver this kind of service. And we already have some experiments running, actually.
Talking about the infrastructure, I would like to have a word with Javier from the CEA in Cadarache, because you are working on the transport, or applying AI to transport on an infrastructure on a very large level. Can you explain us what you're working on, the projects you're working on the port of Marseille, I guess?
First, to explain, we consider the transport, and actually it's not only us, it's a long story, as a complex system. What does it mean? It means that you have to take into account the global system and the individual parts of that system at the same time to make decisions that were right. I give you an example. We talk about this in the Waze dilemma about the...
Yes, everyone use Waze here. I don't know how many Waze users are on the room. Yeah,
a lot of
almost
people.
a third of the person, but in Paris, not many people have car. And everybody knows about the Waze factor, but maybe you can explain it.
Yeah, the Waze traffic jam dilemma, actually. When you are in a traffic jam, Waze propose you to change your path, and it proposed this new path to everybody in the traffic jam. What is going to happen is that the traffic jam is only going to move to the new path. And I think that everybody has experienced that before, or at least once in the last months when you use Waze. What is leaking in this decision is that there wasn't a global vision and an individual vision at the same time. Then they are sending everybody on the same path. You could send some part of these people to the new path. Some part could stay in the traffic jam, and some minutes after, it is going to be more fluid. Then there is the problem with complex systems. You have to have this double vision. Coming back to the Marseille port problem, we have this influence of the Marseille port around all the area of Marseille, Aix-en-Provence, and all the cities around, because the port is one of the biggest employer in the region, because the port generates a lot of traffic also because there's a lot of merchandise that are going to move from the port to the nearby cities, but also to the other infrastructures as the train, the airport, etc., whatever. And there are a lot of people that goes to the port every day also. There is a lot of movements, and there's a lot of waste of space, actually, because most of the time the trucks are empty or half empty. The cars are also half empty, and there is a lot of optimization that can be done at this time to use the same resources. It's a problem of shared resources in order to maximize the space to transport things and to transport people and to reduce the use of the infrastructure.
So it means that you will have to do some predictive analysis from a very various and heterogeneous set of data.
Yeah.
You mentioned the drivers, you mentioned the boats that arrive with merchandise, probably the customs problem, how long will the merchandise stay in the customs? So how do you modelize that? Do you have enough tools today to take in account? So it explains quite well the complexity of the system. How do you manage, how can you handle that and make all the various heterogeneous sources of data lead to only one set of rules and optimization? Yeah.
Well, there are several techniques. It's a couple of techniques actually that we use. We use what is called multi-agent systems. Distributed artificial intelligence, for people that doesn't know it, it actually is the classical way to model complex systems. It allows to take into account what I said before, the individual Donc the individual preference, the objective of everybody, the constraints of everybody, but also the constraints of the infrastructure, of the global system, of the city, of the port, etc. That's, I mean, is the architecture of the system. It's a distributed one. Then the decision is made in a distributed way. And to take into account the different sources of data, we use different kinds of analysis for adapted to the different data. But to take into account to reason on this data, we use what we call a very ancient technology of the AI. It is expert systems. In particular, we have a product that is called Expressive, has been developed by CEA, that allows to take into account the knowledge of people, knowledge as it is late, I'm late, there is a big traffic jam, this kind of not very precise knowledge. It is, we are able to modelize it and to take into account it in a optimization, a distributed optimization algorithm, for instance.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go we'll go back to Paris with the RATP and with Yohan. Hi, Yohan. You're working for artificial intelligence at RATP. When we were preparing this panel, you told me that for you, more than just making autonomous trains, the big change of AI, but it opens new fields of knowledge of what a transport authority or transport company is making. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, of course. It's curious you've introduced me talking about autonomous vehicles, because it's today the 20th anniversary of Line 14
which is quite close
services,
from here.
yeah, so that we can consider as the state-of-the-art of RATP knowledge. And what AI brings to us is the new way of generating knowledge, as you said, not knowing in advance what we are implementing, what we are looking for. We have a lot of knowledge that are not specified, that we are very tacit and implicit knowledge. So what we are trying to improve is the nano knowledge we are trying to reach. I'm gonna take an example on line 13, for example. Breaking news, AI hasn't solved delay problems on
Is there
line
any
13
AI
yet.
on the line 13?
We're trying to.
It needs desperately.
It's a very complicated line, yeah. But what we've learned with AI is how drivers interact with the machine and the infrastructure, for example. We've studied the time you stay in the station, because there's a very simple, easy to understand principle in exploitation, is the carousel metro. It's a very complex system where the more you stay in the station, the more passenger you get, and the more delays you have with the train in front of you, and it's like accumulate problem and time in the station. You understand what I meant?
Yeah.
So
Very clear.
we're trying to understand very nano behavior and
So it's about the behavior of the driver of the train.
Yes,
How he chooses to go back again if there's someone on the.
he can't go back yet.
Go back, but he can start again and go to the next station.
We've discovered that they have different behaviors between station. They can see the station in front of him. You know, there are stations when you can see the station in front of you, and the stations you can't, where there's curves and things. And they doesn't behave the same way. When they see the train in front of them, they like add security margin to their start and go process. So they add delay that were not planned in the theoretical planning. So that's a behavior we didn't know about. That there were individual feelings. We turn into collective knowledge and RATP knowledge, and we can act to change this behavior and to.
And in the line 13, did you give new, instructions to train conductors, for example?
Yes.
Not to wait
that's
that
what
long,
we do.
even if they don't see the train, they have to spend the same time?
Yes,
for
we
example?
told them they can have confidence in signaling
Okay.
and can go as the red light turns to green and not wait for the train in front of them to quit the next station.
In the Air France presentation just before us, there was a lot about planning and how do you make maintenance and predict maintenance and how you can organize such complex transports. Do you use also these kind of tools for your materials for the moment at the RATP, or is something you're already implementing, trying to implementing, testing?
Yeah, we have been implementing planning for many years, but what we're trying to do at the moment is to understand the factors which create difference between theoretical and real exploitation of the line. So that's what we are working for at the moment, and then we're gonna retrofit to the theoretical planning.
Thank you very much. And going back to the user of the transport station, because in the end it's the one that pays for the transport and that uses it. How can AI help them having a view of this complex system? How it can make the transportation system better? You mentioned something, Jean-Marc, in the beginning, which was mobility as a service, which is a concept that maybe not all of you are familiar with, but which is growing a lot, especially in some northern countries. Can you tell us more about that, this idea that mobility must be, well, explain it. You'll explain it better than me.
So when we talk about mobility as a service, first we have in mind the fact that we shift from ownership to service. But you're right that we can also think that mobility as a service is a kind of system of system. When I was talking about fleets of Robo Taxis, or when you are talking about metros, or if SNCF is talking about trains, we have some systems. But from the user point of view, maybe you want to take your car to go to the station, and then you will take the train, and then you will do something else. So this is a system of system, and this is something we need to develop. We already have apps doing this. Renault has already invested in some startups doing that. We have cooperations in order to see how we can complement each other and how we can use a fleet of cars in either car sharing and tomorrow robot taxis to cover the last mile around a station in order to complement each other. So we have many experiments and we have many initiatives, such as developing some platforms or investing in some startups. But definitely, the ultimate goal is to be able to propose this to the user, because the user, I'm a user, I don't want to take care about which station I should go to, where should I park my car, how to the ticketing problem, etc., etc. And if there is a problem, you mentioned some problems in the operation, we want the system to be able to reschedule immediately and say, okay, forget about what I said, we will do something different. Okay, that's fine.
But more than algorithm, if you want to get to such a point, there's a tremendous need of data about that, and opening of data is a key question in the transportation system. Some actors will want or will be obliged to share some data. Some won't or would not like to because they think it's strategical. So how can you go far away with to realize this kind of dream? You need to have all the data possible and available.
Of course, you need to have data available. It's a problem of accessing to this data or of open data. It's a problem also of who will be the winning platform. Everybody has this in mind. Everybody is thinking, oh, okay, I will propose this to the user and I will integrate the other ones. At the end, there will be a couple of winners. Or cities can say, we want to be sure that there is competition and we want to ensure that there will be at least 2 or 3 players, and we don't want one to have the monopoly in my town.
Just a quick word, in the case of Marseille, is the city helping you with some of the data? Are all the partners obliged, or do they have an incentive to give you data so that you can make a better planification for the moment?
Yeah, we are working with the Métropole de Marseille, and they provide us with part of the data. And that is the problem. Nobody has the entire data set.
So
And
someone
we
has
have
to build the big
you,
machine.
you have to share the data because, as I said before, we need this global vision at the same time that the individual one. And to have this global vision, we need the data of everybody, actually. That is the only way. And we have part of the data. With this part of the data, we can build some systems that work less or bad or well. But with more data, we are going to be able to do better, actually. That is the...
That's a common question in AI, and it's one,
yeah,
especially in the
absolutely,
transport.
absolutely, in more particular in complex.
Thank you very much. We have our own data problem, is that the timer thing doesn't work. So I think I'm supposed to stop now and give the mic back to Damien if you want.
Indeed.
But
Thank you
probably
very
for the
much.
next speakers, you have to
We can
warn
applaud
them.
them. Thank you very much for
Thanks
this
a lot.
amazing panel. Thank you very much.